All right, let's finish this up. It does indicate to solve by the completing the square technique, but again, you can use any method you like as long as you show your work. On this one, I am going to use the method indicated, so I'm going to start off with step number 1. Make sure that it is in standard form. It is, so we keep going. Step number 2, we're going to move the constant over to the other side. But I got to leave this space open. So we get negative 15 when it gets moved over. Step 3, get a 1 in front of the x squared term. Done. So we keep going. Then step 4, find 1/2 of the middle term coefficient. Well, 1/2 of negative 8 is negative 4. Step 5, take that number you just found, square it, and add it once on the right side and once on the left side. Now, we did all of that so that we could write a completed square on the left. What is being squared on the first term? An x. What is being squared in the last term? A negative 4. On the other side, we can clean it up. Negative 15 plus negative 4 squared. Remember, when a number is squared, it automatically becomes positive, so we have negative 15 plus 16, which is 1. Now I can take the square root of both sides. On the left, the square root and the square cancel, so the x minus 4 comes straight down. On the other side, because we physically took the square root of both sides, we get plus and minus. And the square root of 1 is 1. Solve for x. I'm going to move the negative 4 over to the other side in front of the plus or minus. So now we have x equals 4 plus or minus 1. Because they are the same type of number, we have to keep cleaning up. We'll do the plus version first. 4 plus 1 would be 5. Then we'll do the minus version. 4 minus 1 is 3. Let's look at number 14. On this one, it says to solve by the quadratic formula, and that's exactly where the quadratic formula is going to be on your exam. So start off by making sure that the quadratic you're working with is in standard form. Everything on one side and set equal to 0. Then identify your a, b, and c. A is 1, the number immediately preceding the squared term. B is negative 4, the number immediately preceding the x term. And C is our constant, 2. If either B or C are missing, they are 0. Now build the quadratic formula first. It's sitting there right in front of you. Write it down, putting parentheses anywhere there's an A, B, or C. Then go back and plug in. This will guarantee that you do not lose any signs. Let's go back and put those in. Minus whatever B is, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC, all over 2 times A. Makes it a little easier to clean up. Minus a minus 4 is 4. Plus or minus the square root. Remember, the square root you'll clean up here. Negative 4 squared, any number squared, automatically becomes positive, so 16. Then negative 4 times 1 times 2 is a negative 8. 16 minus 8 is 8, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Now the square root of 8 can be cleaned up, so quickly out to the side, we'll do our little factor tree. 8 is 2 times 4, and the 4 is 2 times 2. So the prime factorization of 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. Now we have 4 plus or minus. Remember, if there are 2 of something underneath the square root, they can come out. The 2 without a partner stays right back underneath the radical. At this point, it is to your advantage to break it up into 2 smaller fractions instead of a complex number. So rewrite each term over the denominator 2. 4 over 2 becomes 2, plus or minus. On the second term, the 2's cancel, so the square root of 2 is all that's left. Let's look at number 15. Now, you can solve these by any method you like. Quadratic formula, The first one actually factors, so you can factor it. I think I'm going to go ahead and use the factoring method on that first one because I feel like that's what most of us would go to. Let's see, or you could plug into the quadratic formula. Now that is a type 2 trinomial, so I'm going to start by multiplying the 25 and the 3 together. That's 75. The factors of 75 are 1 and 75, 3 and 25, and 5 and 15. In order to get that number, negative 20x, in the middle, I'm going to use factors of 5 and 15. Both of them will have to be negative to add up to negative 20x. Then I'll rewrite the 25x squared. Then instead of negative 20x, I'll use those two numbers I found. Negative 5x minus 15x plus 3 equals 0. We're using the AC or grouping method next, so 25x squared and negative 5x both have a factor of 5x in common. When I factor it out of the first term, I'm left with a 5x. When I factor it out of the second term, I'm left with a negative 1. Bring down the sign between the two groups. 15x and 3 both have a 3 in common. When I factor the negative 3 out of negative 15x, I'm left with a 5x. When I factor the negative 3 out of a positive 3, I'm left with a negative 1. Now I'm down to two pieces. Those two terms have a 5x minus 1 in common. When I factor it out of the first term, I'm left with a 5x. When I factor it out of the second term, I'm left with a minus 3. Now I'm going to set each one of those factors equal to 0 and solve. I'm going to get 5x is equal to 1, so x will equal 1/5 when I finish. Then I'll move the 3 over to the other side on this one. I'll get 5x equals positive 3. After dividing both sides by 5, I'll get a 3/5. Now on this last one, it is a difference of two perfect squares factoring. I'm going to use that method, but you could actually use the square root method because you have only a squared term and a constant, or you could even use the quadratic formula again. I'm going to use the factoring method because it is a difference of two perfect squares. The number being squared in the first position is a 2 and an x. The number being squared in the second position is a 5. With a difference of two perfect squares, we have two two-term phrases. The first base is going to go in the first position. The second base will go in the second position with a plus and a minus between them. To solve, all I have to do is set each factor equal to 0 and solve. I'm going to start by moving the positive 5 over to the other side and then divide both sides by 2. So x will be equal to negative 5/2. For the second term, I'll move the negative 5 over. I get 2x is equal to positive 5. After dividing both sides by 2, x will be equal to 5/2. All right, we got it in. There's the review for test number 2. I'll see you in class.